Hello and welcome to Zasaa Zooms In. Today you get to meet a new guest, a good friend of mine who I call Wonz. Um, yes, and today we decided to tackle that huge topic of mental health. Yes, now obviously we're not professionals, so we tackled it from our point of view and our experience. And it's one of these things that there's still a bit of a stigma around, even though it's being spoken about a lot more. So we just spoke about our experiences, and this is what we had to say. Okay. Hello and welcome to Zasaa Zooms In. Today I have got, what are you doing?
I'm waving to the people that you're saying hello to.
Today I've got a new guest, special guest. She's my friend Wonz, Wonola, but we call her Wonz. So this is Wonz. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming. Finally, years later. But
we're here now.
Yeah,
so,
I guess. And you have reason for not having been here. So I'll let you off. So cool.
You're too kind.
So, Wonz, what are we going to talk about today?
Today, I think maybe we should venture into the world of mental health.
Mental health.
Yeah.
That's a very big one.
It is.
I don't know. Well, let's venture. We'll
Okay.
see how far we go. Because it's one of those things that you're not even going to... We're not going to finish. But we can start.
We can start.
And, well, to be fair, does it ever finish? We can start and take it from there. Do you see how we have matching hair? She copied me.
I did. I actually did.
And then it looks better on her.
But with Zaz, I can copy and not mind.
What about me minding?
That doesn't matter.
Okay, so mental health. What is mental health?
So, mental health is one of those, as you said, really big topics that, as a child that grew up in Nigeria, it wasn't anything we paid attention to. But as I have come to get older, I realized that actually the state of your mind and how it causes you to react to different things at different times actually matter. So for me, mental health is the state of my mind as with regards to how I react in my everyday life. So how I go about my everyday life and how what I'm thinking about, what I'm internalizing, what's going on in my mind affects all of that.
Great. So, mental health is your mind's health as opposed to your body's health.
Yes.
The challenge with mental health, I think, is it's one of those things that we can't see
Or quantify.
or quantify. So how do we go about, you see, I mean, obviously the last few years, mental health has become a buzzword, certainly in the UK, we're much more aware of it, and people pay attention. I almost feel to a certain extent that sometimes it's almost abused, because people have taken it, oh, it's my mental health, you can't, you know what I mean, type of thing. I think I have a child that's that's very good at reminding me about their mental health. I won't let you know if it's a male or female child, but I'm sure you know exactly which child
I am
it
sure.
is. But I think sometimes it's, I mean, have you had, because you say they talk about mental, and I don't want to get this wrong because I don't actually know the correct term, but they talk about mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
And because I think mental health is like the health of your mind.
It is.
And ideally, it should be okay.
Yes.
What sort of things do you, okay, let's talk about, because we're not professionals, let's talk about personal things. So for you, what kind of things affect your mental health?
Okay, so last couple of years has been really interesting for me.
Interesting. I like the word interesting.
Interesting is maybe not the right word, but it's just the word I'm going to use. So back in 2021, almost a year to the day, my mom passed away. And the worst thing is I'd always imagined that when my parents passed away, I'd be like, yeah, they lived a good life. They were old and they had, they had lived till the time they were supposed to live. My mom was 73, which is quite young now, especially knowing what age I am. I'm like, I'm not far away from there. And you have all these thoughts. She was ill for a little bit. She was ill for about 4 weeks. COVID didn't help. And then she passed away. And, I'm a Christian, so I believe in prayer. And we prayed for my mom to get better, and she didn't. So going back to mental health, the way that affected me was it affected my relationship with God. Because in my mind, I kept saying, God, I know you can heal my mom. It's not beyond you to heal my mom. And I had people praying with me, my family and everything. And then after she passed away, I was just, when you're so sad that sometimes you really just don't want to get out of bed. That's how I knew there was
Also,
something
almost
wrong.
like depression.
Yes. So it was almost like depression, but and then you hear all these things about how as Christians we shouldn't be depressed. So yes, we do say it unintentionally otherwise, and you're thinking you're warring against so many things, but you're still so sad. So I was so sad to the point where I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to be around people. I'm normally a very bubbly person, as you know. I'm not the life of the party, but I'm quite social. Yes, but I didn't want to do any of that. I didn't want to. Anytime I got a call from my dad, it'd be a panic.
Yeah.
Anytime my sisters put a message in our group chat, it'd be. My sisters and I have agreed now that if anybody's talking about themselves or if they say let's talk, you need to always lead with everyone is okay. It's a rule in our group. You have to lead with everyone is okay, and that's just because we went through what I consider to be so traumatic that it's clouded everything. So everything is clouded by that death and how obviously it was just so painful.
But do you think that did your sisters respond the same way? Because I know it affects people differently. And obviously grief is, we're now talking about grief, which is but grief affects people differently. So did your sisters struggle to get out of bed as well, or were they?
My sisters were way worse.
Oh wow.
Way worse.
Oh my God.
I believe my sisters are still crying, and this is 2 years on. Yes, they are. Yes, I know you don't want me to say this, but they are still crying. Absolutely. So my older sister went to get a COVID jab right a few months after my mom passed away, and the guy said, "What's your address?" And she said, "My mom passed away."
Oh yes.
Yeah. So so for them, their mental health was played out in their everyday interaction. So they couldn't talk about my mom. My younger sister couldn't go to work. Anytime she was in a meeting, she started tearing up. So they'd tell her to go home. And so, and I'm not. I guess because maybe mental health is so broad, you try not to give, what's the word I'm looking for? You don't want to either belittle or make it a thing that it's not. But in terms of being, as you said, your mind to be well, my mind wasn't well because everything was heightened.
Well, you see, it's so interesting you say that because you see, mental health is absolutely across board in every single situation. So, like you said, I mean, this is a situation of grief, which brought about this mental health. But anything could bring about
anything at all.
Mental illness. I think that's what. No, I don't know what
when your mental well-being isn't where it should be.
Thank you. Let's say
so. And as I said, I don't want to belittle or give emphasis.
And then you see, the challenge with something like that is because you go through that, you're struggling with your mental health. Okay, in your case, it was obvious to the people around you because you were not getting out of bed or anything. But there are a lot of people who are not okay. As their mental health is not exactly where it should be, but they can function in a way that maybe we won't notice. And this is why I always say this thing about mental health, that you just don't know where someone's mind, you don't know where, road rage. I always say this thing about road rage. When I say to my son, I say, I'm not actually worried about you driving. I'm worried about all the other people, because we don't know what stage you don't know what happened to him that caused him to behave like that at that very minute. You have no clue.
And I always joke with my sisters and say we're all walking wounded, especially those of us that grew up in the 80s in Nigeria. Walking wounded people all over the place. And then I always joke and say, but we turned out okay. But it's been a journey. We didn't just wake up and then we were okay. You actively went out of your way to protect your mental well-being. So now, I know that sometimes I just need to take time out and just not speak to anyone. Now that seems a bit harsh because I have a family, I've got children, but I don't have the capacity to. If I speak to them, I would just say something that's not nice, or I wouldn't come across as loving as I should be. But I know it's because I'm at a place where speaking to them is counterproductive. I physically can't.
So how does one then know? And there are a couple of questions I have out of this actually, but I was going to say, how does one then know when one actually needs to take it further and get help, as in like take tablets or whatever? Because again, we have this thing where we don't want to take tablets. But if you have a headache, you take a tablet. If you have, physically you have something wrong, you take the medication. And I don't know, there's such a stigma with mental health, like the person is on antidepressants or whatever.
Yes.
I guess there's also that thing of these things can be addictive, but I'm sure that's
the side effects can be really
yeah, but headache
bad.
tablets too can be addictive. So I don't, you know, I think it's, you know, so I think how do you then know, or how did you go to the doctor?
So I didn't, but my daughter had to. So this leads on to another part of what happened to me and my family in 2021, where lovely Saturday afternoon, just chilling, took my son out, brought him back, and then my daughter runs up the stairs and she's like, oh, mommy, daddy's on the floor. And I was like, you know, I just come back, I took my hair off, wig, her, and then I come downstairs and last thing my husband said to me was, I'll be fine, and then he just collapsed. And that was the beginning of a 5-month journey of him being in the hospital. He had a cardiac arrest, and he was 47. He didn't even have a headache. He normally wasn't unwell. My daughter witnessed that, and we had to get her help, because after a while, even when we went out, she'd call us. Where are you guys? Are you guys okay? I'm just checking on you. Yeah. She's 14. Yeah. A 14-year-old shouldn't have to be looking for her parents, you know. So whilst I was able to say, okay, I just need time out. I just need, you know, to not speak to you guys. I'm not able to deal with it. She's 14. She's not able to regulate her emotions as well as I did. So she got counselling. So we got counselling for her, just to talk through all the emotions, talk through, you know, the fears, and it's not, and I think maybe not the worst thing, but the thing about mental health is that I don't think there's a start and end date.
There isn't.
Yeah, like, so now she still kind of checks up on us when we go out, but it's not in a panic.
Yeah.
So she's a bit more, okay, if it's 11 o'clock and my parents are not back, I need to know where they are.
Yeah.
Even though she's still just quite young, but she's not, when we call her, she's not panicked. She doesn't sound panicked, whereas before, she was panicked, or, oh my gosh, did something happen to you or daddy, or, you know, and, you know, it was really starting to take over her life. So we got her help. She saw a counsellor for a little while, and we still talk about it. Every so often we ask her questions like, how are you doing? Are you doing okay? Hers went a bit further than that when we started talking about self-harm and stuff. So she definitely needed help. And, you know, growing up, you know, things like that, it was just not anything that we talked about. Why are you trying to hurt yourself?
Yeah.
What you would have received in my house.
Oh, don't be silly.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to be late for, you know, those kind of things. But I recognize that, you know, we're not in a society where you either support that, enable that, or leave that to fester. So we very quickly knew that we had to do something about it.
It's interesting you say that, because this is another thing that, because one of my children I took for counselling as well, and I think it's one of those things that I'm hoping that more and more people are doing and seeing that there's not a problem with it. But I was just like, you know, and I remember having this conversation with his dad, and his dad was a bit skeptical, like, you know, I was like, no, I'm taking him for counseling because he's clearly struggling with his mental health. I can see it, and I don't have the tools. Now, initially, I told you now, I took a course in mental health. I took one in mental health for adults, one in mental health for kids, and I still wasn't able to. So I did that for a couple of years to try and help him. And then I thought, no, I think one of the things, you know, like people frown on or are afraid to, and remember, if there's any issue, you need I'm taking my child for counselling, because I think, and counselling is not, maybe it's because of the way we look at counselling, or maybe it's because we just don't give mental health the position that we give other things. But I mean, I took my child for counselling and it helped hugely. But again, it's not over.
Yes,
it's not over. I'm really always watching.
Yes,
you just don't know. Asking and, you know.
And people need to know that maybe almost like if one is doing it or if Zasaa is doing it, then it's okay. It's actually okay.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
And in fact, it's not a sign of anything.
Frankly, I think all of us need counselling.
I agree.
I think all of us need counselling.
I don't think we need to wait to the point where we actually need it.
Yeah.
You should just go anyway. It's good to talk. I mean, you may not be a talker or whatever, and you don't necessarily have to go there and share everything about your life, but there's just a way that they communicate with you that allows
it
you
just
to
makes you think about things, and think about them differently. I think. And so I think it's really, I do think counselling is really important. I think everybody should go for counselling at some, you know, even if it's just like a 4-week counselling session, just because it just makes you think differently. I say this, I haven't been for counselling, but having done a counselling course, there's there's a level of counselling you have to do to do the course.
Okay,
you know what I mean? But I haven't done it before. But I know that certainly with my child, you know, for me there was no alternative. I was like, he needs help. But I was worried, you see, and this is probably also because of the stigma. I was worried about putting him under the we call it cams. I don't even know what
Yes.
or putting him under cams because I was like, is that going to label him?
Or does that mean that social services are then watching you? Yes.
You know what I mean? So there is so there is an element of, I mean, luckily when I spoke to the GP, he was with me and he was like, no, at this point we don't need to put him into CAMS.
Okay.
We can. So CAMS is the mental health
children and adolescent mental health
services. Yeah. So we went to a charity that does counselling, and that was absolutely brilliant. And whilst he hated every minute of it, it was talking therapy. And you know how it is.
I also loved it.
They just play with them, so they don't even know they're talking. So he's playing. They're doing a puzzle, or they're doing. They just
and then
do
they
things.
ask them questions,
Well,
and they
well, they don't know if they even ask questions, but they get them to talk through the games and the things that they're playing with. And he was like, it's pointless. I'm sitting there building an airplane. You know, he didn't understand
what they were trying to do, right? Did they not?
But the difference was clear.
Really?
And I don't think it. I mean, for us, we could see that definitely the way things were processed was very different. The way, you know, so not 100%, but there was a clear difference. So I think counselling, please don't even hesitate if it's something that, you know. And then lots of charities that will do like free 12-week courses, sessions. Thank you. 12-week sessions before, you know, if to start off, you can obviously get longer period of time and you pay for that, because I think a lot of people also think that counselling is expensive,
which can be, but there are options these days.
Do you know what?
Yeah,
it's your mental health.
Yeah,
you know, and if you can't afford it, there's help. But if you can afford it, it's a good investment. Yeah, it actually is a good investment.
And actually, I actually think I need. Mine is a bit more specific. So, you know, I just mentioned that my husband had the cardiac arrest. So now, every time he calls me, I ask him first, what's wrong?
Okay. Yeah. So something that your daughter was doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every time he calls me, or if he calls and his voice is different, I panic. So I think it's like a post-trauma.
Yeah, I just would say that sounds like
post-trauma kind of. I mean, I don't do it anymore, but I did used to wake up to see if he was breathing.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but it's not something you can control. It's just because it honestly, it was a Saturday afternoon. He did not have a headache. He was tired, but tiredness is overrated. Okay, it's not. Tiredness is actually not overrated. If you're tired, you need to get rest. But he was tired, but it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. So, not that you ever see something like a cardiac arrest or a heart attack coming, but we literally didn't see it coming. So now, every so often, if he says he's going down the road, then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, should I go with him? And I think I even attempted to put a tracker on his phone, to which he said no. I still feel like I have a valid reason to put one on. But anyway, I'll wait for him to come
But you know
inside.
what? I actually think you do need to go for counselling. And the reason I say that is because it's exactly the same thing you were talking about your daughter having.
Yeah.
But yours is the adult controlled version.
Yes.
So if you go for counselling, maybe it will get
yeah.
you'll be able to think it through differently. I mean, the truth of the matter is that your fears are valid.
But there's absolutely nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
Why am I?
So exactly.
Yeah. So I know that, and you know, obviously, as a Christian, we know your fear is just eating at you. It's not doing anything for you. You're not able to control it. All you can do is just pray about it. So I've been trying to do that. Is it better? It's a little better, but I'm still working through it. So, I mean, you know, he's since the cardiac arrests. For those the medical people amongst us, he was shocked 10 times. And he was, they were doing CPR for like 40 minutes. Wow. So, and they said in that time, oxygen didn't go to his brain for 11 seconds. They worked that out. So when he did wake up, he didn't know who I was. So I was waiting for him to say one name.
You are terrible.
He did. I was saying, if he says another name, that's not my own. I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding. Actually, I did think that.
Such a nuisance.
He didn't. He's a good husband. No, he didn't.
The point of the thing, that was the last thing on your mind. You were just happy he was awake.
No, legit, I did think that.
You did?
I did. I really did. After I was happy that he woke up, I then thought, okay, but no, because he didn't remember me. He didn't remember the kids. Then he remembered 2 kids, and then not the third one. So there were just all sorts of things. So you know, the journey was, and we're still on the journey because now he has a device, which fired off.
Just recently.
And it only fires off when he feels like your heart is doing irregular things and he needs to, you know, bring it back to normal. So there's still all that as well. So he's on medication that is sort of the side effects are not great, but he's working through it and, you know, he's getting much better. He's better now, by God's grace. So Yeah, so, in terms of my mental well-being, I am better, but as I said earlier, there is no start and end time, and I recognize, and I think it's good, and not everyone is able to, that I need support, which I will get. So if you're able to, as I said, if you're able to and you can, please go ahead and do it, because it's not benefiting me or anybody to be waking up to be checking if my husband is breathing. Then I'm going to wake up the next morning tired because my sleep is interrupted. The anxiety or the little, anxiety I feel when he calls or when he doesn't call. When he doesn't call for 4 hours, I panic. When he calls, I panic. Is counterproductive. So, if you're able to, then please do get support. If you're not, then...
Do you know, but I do think that there are ways you can get... But I was going to say, I think that there are ways you can support yourself as well. Like something like writing a journal. People don't realize...
I'm probably one of those that don't feel that's helpful.
But you see, that's just talking, isn't it? It's the equivalent of talking just to a book.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're not getting feedback necessarily. But to be honest, a lot of counselors don't give you feedback. They're just letting you talk. The idea is a safe space where you can talk. And so I think counseling, writing things down, I think women are better at talking anyway, so you probably talk to your friend anyway. Not so much for men. And I'm going to do mental health with men. I'm going to find some men. So if you're a man and you're willing to come and talk about mental health, please, I'm going to do that. But I think, things like writing a journal, talking to people, there are ways you can help yourself anyway, apart from, obviously professional help is probably the best thing, but you can help yourself on. But anyway, this week is mental health, Children's Mental Health Week.
It is.
We've both spoken about our children that have had mental health challenges. What would you say to because it's funny, before you brought up your daughter, I was actually going to say how, in terms of mental health, having been through mental health challenges yourself, how do you deal with mental health challenges with your children? Now, obviously, you've spoken about your daughter. Do you think that there's things that we as parents can be doing to help our children's mental health?
Talk. Communication. I cannot speak highly enough of talking. You're not going to, my children are I have 2 teenagers and a 9-year-old, and they're at that age where they maybe want to be in their rooms or they're just talking to their friends. But be in their lives, talk to them, find out what's going on, talk to them when they come back from school. You will know when something's off. There will be a trigger of sorts, even if it's not like a big hoo-ha or a big song and dance. You just notice my child is not behaving the way they would behave. They'd come in, they wouldn't be as, not necessarily, very boisterous or, any over the moon or stuff like that. But there'll be little things that you pick up because you know your child, right? Yeah. So there'll be little things that you pick up, they might come in a humph and just sit at the table like that, and you'd be like, what happened in school? Nothing. Then something happened. So I cannot overemphasize enough how much talking to your kids is a great idea. Just talk to them as much as possible. Sometimes it's difficult, but where you can, please just communicate with them.
What I think is also important is being a safe space for
yes, that was
so
the next one.
Don't be judgmental, because I think sometimes we use our adult brain to look at a child problem. Does that make sense? So we are like that was stupid, or that was we're now being judgmental about what they've done, and that doesn't help them in their own. It's almost like be a safe space, but also listen, because I think sometimes our kids are telling us stuff, and we're so busy finding out or pointing out what they didn't do right, or what they could have done better, or that we miss we miss what they're trying to say, especially if it's a child like one of mine that is not going to talk no matter what. So I can talk from here to kingdom come, and that child is not going to talk. Well, if we were talking about something that they're interested in, yes, but not, in general, to just be having a conversation with you, they're not really 100%. So I find that I have to listen and get involved in things that they are interested in, so that hopefully the same way that the counselor would do things and then get stuff out. I always used to say, when my eldest son was much younger, I always used to say to his dad, go and play FIFA with him. Just go and be there with him, so that
he knows that
you know what I mean. So that in that time, that was when he would now say, "Oh, I fancy this girl," or whatever, just by mistake. But in the same space. But if you're always saying, "Why are you still?" Then he's not going to tell you. So I think we have a responsibility as parents to actually pay more attention. And this is not to mollycoddle, because whilst we don't use your experience growing up as a yardstick.
Yes.
That you also don't use your own personal, like what you
Yes.
went through, because
Yes.
the way you respond to things very different.
Yeah, and now, in fact, this is a good place to use my sister as an example. Yes, don't come for me. So my older sister, so when we were growing up, she was like the hardest person. We just, in fact, I think my younger sister and I were afraid of her, legit. We just, when she got married, we helped her to pack her bags. We were like, yeah, you can go. Thank you, brother-in-law, for taking her. You know, it was that kind of relationship. When my mother passed away, it's like she just morphed into this person that is actually still crying today, 2 years on. She actually still cried on Sunday. And she was the one that I told you that when she went for a COVID vaccination, they said, where do you live? And she said, my mom passed away. She is completely different. So don't not only judge your children by your yardstick, don't even judge adults, because we're all individual. You know, my sister doesn't recognize who she is now, but she'll be okay. She will be fine. So, I mean, if you're not going to, you know, judge an adult, how much more our children? You know, kind of thing.
And I think it's really important. I mean, obviously, because it's Children's Mental Health Week, I think it's also really important for us to, like, it's funny because whilst you were talking just now, I just remembered that I made the decision not to allow one of my children to go down a particular route because I didn't feel his mental health could handle it.
Okay.
Where I knew that the other child, you know, go. So I think it's you have to be very careful to look at each child individually. So you have to pay more attention. And I think there's a lot that we can do as parents to help them to cultivate a healthy mental state.
Yes.
Yes. Got it.
Well done. Yes.
To cultivate a healthy mental state. And
Yes.
things like, I think I mentioned earlier, journaling.
Yes.
Things like, you know, if they don't want to talk,
Then what do you do actually? It's more
you
a whole
pray.
lot more difficult.
You
Yeah,
pray.
you definitely pray.
But
you pray, even if
but you know, but if they don't want to talk, just be there at specific times when it's a safe. That's what I'm saying by safe space, where they can talk.
True.
You can ask them questions, try and draw things out.
Yeah.
But you know what I was saying earlier also about playing with them on their level.
Yes.
So whatever it is, because they're more likely to talk when they're in a place where they're comfortable, where they're feeling, you know what I mean, than mommy has come to ask me questions.
That's true. And a good example of that again is I have another child that plays football. And it's when we're driving to football. Today he said, I think I spend more time in this car than I spend at home because we're always driving somewhere. And there is sometimes conversations happen that way. Yeah. And it's just organic because we're together. We're talking about, you know, we're gonna play ball. I'm trying to encourage him, and then he'll be like, oh, but I'm not feeling confident today, and that's how you. At the level, you know, be interested in what they're interested in, then you can get more out of them. Yeah. It's not always easy because, I mean, if he was going to fly a plane, it'd be a whole new ball game, but, you know, it's just football. And
I think maybe the key thing is just be alert, pay attention, and don't ignore and just write off or say you're being silly.
Yes.
Every feeling is valid.
Yes.
Every feeling is valid.
Yes.
And
find out why. So, you know, don't ignore. So sometimes... And again, don't mollycoddle. We're not saying that to say, you know, mollycoddle, but, you know, there's probably a trigger, you know, of sorts that you... And some of them don't make sense to us. For me, some of them, I'm just thinking, but how did we get here? But, you know, we're in a whole new world where social media is reality. And it's really not social media, it's actually reality. So we have to navigate all those waters and, you know, by God's grace, we're doing okay, but you just have to be mindful.
Yeah. So I'll put at the end of this video, I'll put different, because there's a lot of support out there, certainly in the UK, in the US. Yeah. I don't know where anybody's watching from, but I'll put details of the UK since we're based in the UK helplines and stuff. But don't ignore. I think that's the key thing. Don't ignore and spend more time talking, listening, safe space. I think that's what I'd say.
Yes.
Anything else?
What she said.
What I said. All right then. Till next time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so mental health. I think the most important thing that we were trying to say is don't ignore your mental health. Don't ignore your children's mental health if you have children. Pay attention and get help if you need help. There's nothing wrong with getting help, and it's much better to get help. It's just much better to get help. There's no shame in getting help, and there is help out there, so do get the help. Do let us know if you have any comments, if you struggled with your mental health, if there's something you've done that you would like to share that helped. Please leave messages in the comments. God bless you.